Oh, I like questions.
Hmm.
Well, maybe we could start there with a question, an opener. Hmm.
And I'm curious because you had a lot of one-on-ones with people.
Yes.
What in those one-on-one talks has pointed you in the direction of action? Because there are plenty of people in the group that already take action.
The thing is that the heart decides, and there are a lot of people in a lot. There are a number of people who are already connected with it, who are doing stuff, and they've made it clear they're doing stuff. But the idea is that by the very fact that they are doing stuff, they are an example for other people who currently yet are unaware of what they might do. And at the very core of the heart decides, it's about actually um, um, listening into yourself, and finding in yourself somewhere the real self that wants to do something. So the dilemma there is that if it were about direct action, if it were simply about direct action, it would be, in a sense, directing people. But the action of the heart decides is to bring more awareness to help people take direct action. It's not to take direct action itself. And
No, no,
so,
that one I got. Yeah.
if you talk about an action mode, um, the only discussions, I suppose, in that context would be around, but how yeah, we completely get, and I don't discuss this with everybody, but it's there in the even in the it's really funny, I spent a weekend doing 3 minutes um, of me
Video.
recording something video, and I watch it back and I don't see myself. How bizarre is that? Anyway, but the fact is that in that 3 minutes, I do point out to the fact that I'm on the hook just as much as everybody else. You know, um, I'm one of the 68% who feels that they have no ability to affect what's going on, and etc. And I'm in the process of changing that. And it might be a cop out for my change to be, I'm going to I'm going to help other people come to my point and move on from there. And the strange thing where I'm hooked is is my thing going to be doing this, or is this what I'm doing as a sideline and I should be doing something else? I actually do something. And so all those people who are coming, they are already many of them already actually doing something, but not all of them. And some of them and they don't know this because I haven't said to them. Some of them are kind of doing something, but also not really going to a place within themselves where they think, "Do you know what, I could be doing more, I could be seeing more, I could be," etc. Otto Sharma says in the preface of his updated "What is You" theory is is so he says some of the leadership capacities that are at the heart of the U method include suspension and wonder. Only in the suspension of judgment can we open ourselves up to wonder. Wonder is about noticing that there is a world beyond our patterns and our downloading. Core sensing. You must go to the places of most potential yourself, because it is in these connections that the seeds of the future come into the world. Connect with these places with your mind and your heart wide open. Co-creating. Explore the future by building small landing strips for the future that wants to emerge. Container building. Create new holding spaces that activate the generative social field. I couldn't put it any clearer myself. That is exactly what the Heart Decides is. It's amongst many, a landing strip for people to co-create and co-sense into an emerging future by listening to themselves. And so it's not unique in that way. But then I was thinking about this morning, walking Teddy. At the same time, it needs some uniqueness in a strange way. So like, and I don't know whether it already does, because I've looked at U theory, I've looked at several other things that are going on, including the week. None of them really point to the fact that none of them really make a big deal of the fact that you're really going to have to get to grips with where you're fully coming from as a person, and really be present to who you are, whatever game you're playing, in order to change that and actually find a bigger game, what they are a stand for. And that to me is the premise upon which I base the fact that when people do that, they're tapping into their whole selves, the bigger game, the thing that before they became over self-critical or one of many other things, they would have wished for themselves and their part in the world. And I think that many people think that it's naivety to think they can contact that, and that they're now grown up. And in fact, I think that's a huge blind spot, because I think that in fact, coming back to that is the way in which they stop fighting the world and actually start going with it. And so maybe the reason I'm saying that is maybe that's the uniqueness. What's coming up for you?
One of the thoughts that came up was, to what extent is the concept of transformational presence, which is at the bottom of the U, the present thing, maybe related to the bigger stand?
Oh, for sure.
Because that would be informed by where you're coming from, and taking a stand, and then going in that upwards movement of the U.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And in fact, I find it somewhat ironic. You know, you could go to U school and maybe not get anything out of it, or you could go to U school, find yourself in the right, in quotes, the right container, and have a magical, mystical experience. But you could do the same. You could do the same on an evening out with a group of friends. It could be horrible,
yes.
or you could have a magical, mystical experience. So it's all about the container. And you know, if I could wish it, if somebody said to me, Ray, you can retire, go to the side there, do nothing, and actually what's going to happen is 20% of the 68% are all going to go to U school. They're going to find it really great, and then they're going to they're going to change the world. And I say, oh great, okay, I'll retire now. I'll go to the Bahamas or whatever. But it's not going to happen. And the vast majority of people are never going to find themselves going to U school, because they're never going to put themselves in a position where they're sufficiently interested to find out what it is and to take the time out to do it. In general, most people who are doing that, many people who are going to IDGs, they were always going to be going anyway. It's not exactly picking up a huge pace. So it's not those people I'm really after. And in a way, Lalou with the week is in the same game as the Heart Decides, because he's specifically trying to make it easy for people to have an experience and think, actually, this is, you could argue with the screening of the event and all the rest of it, it's almost an over aggressive, disorienting dilemma for people. I'm living this world, and now I've just seen something that's really terrible, and I'm going to have to go inward and find out what's happening to me, and I'm going to make a commitment to discuss it with other people. That's what I make up of the week. What I understand about it is that the whole concept of the week is to kind of make you stop and face the reality rather than continuing with business as usual. You watch the film, you make a commitment to think about it, to enter into containers and discuss it in a way that you would normally not do, to make it more real. And so for me, huge disorienting dilemma. You then have within those containers, you practice relating in a way that is not typical of your everyday life, and you will have insights, and they may indeed change you and prompt you then to take a new direction. And so I think Lalou is other in contrast to U School, or to an extent, I think IDGs, in contrast to them, he's trying to make something, and good on him, that is publicly accessible and relatively quick to do. Where I would probably, if he were in this room now, challenge him would be that I'm not so sure that people would perhaps need just a little bit more support in the long run to maintain or to build on that awareness gained, that insight, and where for me the Heart Decides would be much more attached to that finding a bigger game and declaration of that, even if that's not a public declaration. But I could be wrong. I mean, I could be wrong. That could be something about me that is driving that. I don't know. But to come back to the whole point and come back to the bit about U School, exploring the future by doing, building small landing strips for the future that wants to emerge. It's a sort of a fractal, and all the nicest things are fractals. So I would expect people to come to the Heart Decides, to find the capacity to go on a little bit of a learning journey, but to get into spaces where they very much come out of business as usual and experience and start to see themselves as part of a turning. But in the process, their heart decides, I'm now going to start creating the future in a different way to what I'm currently creating it. And then what they do from that is not the heart decides, it's whatever they do from it.
I've heard you, because if I gathered correctly, last week, you're kind of in the Heart Decides, something needs to happen. Am I going to be the catalyst, or am I gonna wait and see if the group will be the catalyst? But you feel that something needs to happen, and you weren't entirely sure who, what, where. And I've heard you say the word container many times now. The Heart Decides is also a container
Yeah.
that we are inviting people into. And
Yeah.
if I look at human systems dynamics, for
Mhm.
things to move, it also needs either differences that make a difference or
Yes.
exchanges.
Yes. That's very true. And
Maybe
nice, you made me smile.
maybe there are differences that make a difference, but people are unaware of them yet. But there are very little exchanges.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. The current differences that make a difference is just the makeup of people. So I've deliberately tried to seed in there people from all different
Mhm.
places and etc. So
I know, but they don't.
they don't. No, they don't. That's right. But then again, yeah. But then again, I wonder in any container creation whether some people truly recognize the differences that are deliberately cultivated into them. Maybe some, maybe not others. And they don't really need to. But the reason they don't
No,
need to is because it'll come out in the exchanges.
but there need to be exchanges.
Yes. But yeah, this is another dilemma. So um yeah, so what's the dilemma that hit me? Yeah, the thing that I'm worried about, the thing that I'm worried about, well, there's two sides to this, there are two parts to it. The first part is that I think if the exchanges are just the same as in LinkedIn in general, it will be a container that's looking inwards as opposed to a container that's created to invite people in. Um, so it'll become self-sealing in a way.
But you
And
could make that a difference, the way that the exchanges go.
yes, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, absolutely. Um, I did think about deliberately on that score. I did think about deliberately. You know, you're gonna laugh. Well, yeah, gosh. Um, years ago when people started doing agile and stuff, and then they started talking about work and Scrum and I don't know, it all blends into one in my mind. But somewhere along the line, it was like, yeah, when they do that agile stuff, they don't do requirements, they do user stories. What does that mean? And so then it became a bit sort of mystical. Yeah, they do user stories and as a user, blah blah blah. Yeah, and they put stickies on the wall and the windows, and so it was kind of powerful in its own way, but simple. But then simple is powerful also. So in that vein, I did wonder whether it would be quite useful for us to just do a little bit deliberate sense making, a conversation, and actually post a framework for it and show it in action, and then say we deliberately want people to exchange, to have more exchanges in this way, to actually be able to open up, speak from a certain place and make things up, but understand that it's all about co-sensing, that it's all about actually co-creating, and deliberately point to the fact that in this area, that is what we're about. It's not about the rest of LinkedIn where it's like adding extra things on top of the cake. No, forget the cake. let's look inside and start really making sense of the ingredients. What we talk about is that, or what Michael introduced, the structure of exchanges that Michael introduced, and we're still on the subject of exchanges.
Yeah.
That Michael introduced was you kind of get that three or four part that comes back. So you get what's coming up for me, what I feel in that, what from me, not from here, what's coming up from me, and then what I make of that. So what my thinking or what my sense of it is making from that, and then I wonder, or that raises a question. So there's three parts to that. And for me, those three parts are heart, head, and future. Or possibility. Heart, head, possibility. So, or even embodied whole self, awareness, possibility. You can see it in many different ways. But so I structure the conversation is the exchanges are built on those that sort of, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder whether so that sometimes I've thought to myself, would that change the whole nature of the exchanges if we knew we were everybody there was exchanging in a structure of actually, well, deliberate sense making. Well, there's the thing.
What?
It's just plumb crazy. From my point of view, it's very much about a deep listening to yourself and your inner self and your embodied self. What's happening to me as this takes place? So that's very much about the shape you're in as a person. So what's happening to me? And then therefore, what do I make of that? So what can I respond with? And by the way, there's another element here, which is the case of, which is the thing that Michael talks about very much as well, which is the let's stop being separate and talk about responses where we're both grappling our way towards what are we making of this, and then as a result of that response, which is you embodying your intelligence to create a response, to connect with that person, what is the possibility for us from that? Because if you ask somebody a question, or you say, and then what I make of it is, it could be this. It's always a possibility that's co-created. So for me, it's your embodied self as I offer you this that's happening in me. Then what, what does that, what do you feel like? What is that? What do you make of that? And now what is the possibility? If I think if people kind of seriously got into that, they would see that it generally takes them out of how they would normally respond in LinkedIn. Do you feel that anything I have said has added or changed your, what you make up of the Heart Decides as an initiative?
Yes, it has for me, because I thought originally it was to help people get into action and maybe help each other in that way. But it's actually about, for the people that don't have that yet, to find that bigger stand that will propel you into action. At least is what I made up.
No, that is interesting because I believe it's both. Because I think once the Heart Decides, once you actually do find that bigger stand, there will be people in this community of communities that are doing
Yeah, for
things,
sure.
and you would be able to, you would have the the new sense of self that allows you to say, I actually can act. And it's interesting because both the IDGs this year, which talk about going to the dark places, so go beyond awareness, go to the dark places of yourself and the struggles, and from there you can act. So they're then focusing on how do we move into action. And at U School, it's very much about having the awareness. You can't rest at the bottom of that U in awareness. You have to pull out, because you have to, at that point, what do you act? What do you actually do with this? So I don't think you can have the, as we were talking last week, you can't move into active hope without being active. Something's going to give. And as we were talking earlier, one of the people who originally joined, when he said to me, so I could come and do something, um, it folds in itself. I think once you come and have those conversations, once you find something that, yeah, it was never really lost, but you begin to activate that within yourself, then I think from all of the other people there, we've said already, there's lots of people there who are already doing stuff, and I keep talking to those people and saying, this is, a if you like, a bigger possibility for that thing that you are a stand for, because I would expect people to come along to you and say, actually, do you know what, now I understand what you're doing, I'd like to do some of that. So you can't have awareness without action. You would be naturally propelled to actually doing something, and long may it be so. Long may it be so.
Because the thing that because I had a fourth question,
Oh, go on.
knowing that I didn't ask the third one since it appeared to be not relevant, but I want, I also had the question, what impact or action would you most like to see in the world? So you know that the heart decides had anything to do with that. But it's
I can answer that question very simply. I spoke to a good friend of mine a week or two ago, and he was, like many of us, he was tired. He was not particularly motivated in what he was doing, etc. And I said to him, okay, but how many times do you find yourself actually in the present moment? How many times do you find yourself where you are, with the capacity to think, wow, this is what I'm thinking and feeling right now. What does that mean? How is that going to change my future? And he stopped and he said, I don't. And I said, well, this I find incredible, because if you can't find yourself in the present, then everything we do in the present is always making the future. So you're living without that. You're living in some conceptual awareness of who you were in the past and who you might be in the future. But that's actually creating your future. You aren't. And this comes back to so in answer to your question, um, I would, if more people could find practices and self-awareness to the point where in any given day we can find ourselves where we are in presence of ourselves and act from there, that would be the most important thing for me. I think the third part of the heart decides, as well as awareness in containers and self-awareness, and as well as the possibility to find action through communities that are there, that through different people maybe wanting to say, well, I'd like to do some of that. You're not alone, etc. The third part of it is a general level of information. So a general level of information. If people do want to go to U School, or they never heard of the week, or they don't know what IDGs are, they've never heard about developmental constructivism, etc. And there's many people don't. And so a general level of awareness is also, I think, powerful. It's knowledge, but it's not practice, but it's powerful. Dave Snowden might say the combination of the two is the thing, and he'd be right. But yeah, so a general level of information, and I think, and I can't think of anywhere I can go on the internet where it would sort of weave those together. I mean, you can often go to places where they have like, we're going to talk about yoga, or we're going to talk about this, or we're going to talk about that, and yoga's great. But then how does that weave into, well, if I've got a practice and self-awareness, and where am I acting from, and why am I acting? Who is doing the acting? What am I doing? What am I doing it for? Am I me, or are we? And what are we creating? The sort of rounded whole sense of that is really important to me. It's not just the information. So at the moment, we have a whole bunch of practices, most of us in our life, that are actually sustaining our current self. And unless we change those practices, the one being that we've mentioned being the conversational exchange, the meaning making, unless we change those practices, we will continue to be what we do. And so the Heart Decides has to be about awareness, but the way you maintain that awareness, and the way you maintain that awareness into action, which delivers on that, is always through continual practice. It could not be any other way. Because if you thought that actually, oh no, I've got this now, and I think that I know it, and therefore, because I know it, I'm going to do it, you'd be wrong, because that would be conceptual. It wouldn't be doing it. It has to be built on the practice. And to you and I, that might seem straightforward and obvious, but to a vast majority of people, they're probably not giving it a great deal of thought. So yeah, absolutely, it has to be a place for practice.